Hey, what's up? 219 Jello back at it. What are we doing today? Something. Yep, 8.8 Ford. Yep, Ford. Check. So, customer is going to change his axles, put a bigger axle in. So he bought himself a nice little limited slip unit, installation kit. And all I'm doing is changing the ring. I'm taking the ring gear off of this carrier unit, and I'm going to go ahead and put new bearings and everything on that one, swap the gear over on that one, and set her back up in here. I'm not going to mess with the pinion because, well, I'm going to get it all apart first, at least this part, and I'm going to inspect the pinion bearings and all that stuff. But looks pretty clean in here. The gear pattern looks pretty good. So I don't want to upset the apple cart too much if I start changing the pinion depth. I want to keep that pinion right where it's at. This gear set is worn in already. It's not worn out, it's worn in. You can see it right there. Got a pretty good contact pattern on that side. And a pretty good contact pattern on that side. So we're going to leave that alone unless the bearings are bad, which I doubt they are. But if they are, then we'll go ahead and take it apart. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and take the caps loose. I already checked preliminary backlash, and it's at 10 thousandths right now. Feels like 20, but it's 10. And start taking off my caps, keep everything side oriented. Make sure these caps don't get spun around. There should be arrows pointing, yep, that way. That way. And I'll keep the shims just like they are and put them right back in with a new differential. And we'll see if the preload's good or not. If not, we'll have to adjust the preload and then adjust the backlash. So let's get at it. All right, got the caps busted loose and off, oriented, and shim should be in there. I'm not really seeing the shim right there. I hope they're not behind the freaking bearings, the inner race and a carrier. I've seen that before in these Fords. Pinning a butt that way. It should be out here. So let's see. All right, I pulled that carrier out, and there's the shims. They must made them from the factory. They're thick ones. So we'll put them in just like that. We put it back together, and we'll see where we're at. Well, after further investigation, I want to clean this thing better. There are some very fine metal shavings in there, kind of normal, but yeah, I want to get this thing clean. So I'm gonna pull that pinion gear out of there and replace the bearings. But first of all, I am going to, it's kind of the hilly way to do it, but it doesn't really matter. I know that pinion depth is pretty good right where it's at. The gear's wearing good. I don't want to change that, so all I'm going to do is I got some precision ground flat stock here, and this is all nice and stoned off, so nice and flat. And I'm going to measure with my dial caliper from here down to the top of the gear, and I'm going to try to match that number when I put this thing back in there. When I might have to shim it to get it back to where it's at. I want to get it back to where that gear is. So yeah, they make tools to go inside your center line, but as long as I got a reference from somewhere to the top of there, I'm going to duplicate that. It's where it was, and I can do it with this machine surface. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'm doing right there. Measuring from the top of my ground stock to the top of the gear, and I'll check that gear in a few places. I'll spin it, but I got 4.793. 4.793. So I'm going to rotate it 2 more times and check it, make sure it's pretty consistent. All right, check within 2 thousandths all the way around, so calling that good. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling that pinion out of there. Starting to lay everything out the way it came apart. So this is looking at the rear end from the rear of the car, left and right side, driver's side, passenger side. Didn't get the caps upset or spun. Arrows pointing that way. So there's my shim on the one side. There's my shim on the other side. So now I got my pinion depth reference, my shim reference, and that should put me close enough to, hopefully close enough. We'll see. Time to start zipping them bolts out. I know the Chevys, these are all left-handed threads. This kit came with new bolts and they're right-hand threads, so I'm going right-handed. If I break one in there, I break one in there. We'll have to probably just tell him he needs a new gear then. Here's a little pointer. If you get the caps mixed up and you're not sure, you already know the arrows go to the outside that way. So this cap either goes there like that, or it goes like that over here. Still not sure? You can always tell by the machining, because usually when they line bore these things, you're not going to get the same finish each cap. And you see that? Well, doesn't look right, does it? Oops, I'll show you this way. See that? That looks like a total match. So we know that one goes that way. Arrows pointing out. These are just things that a machinist notices. Alright, and this one's a little beat up on there on the inside. You see that? Like it almost spun the bearing a little bit. See how it's tore up in both pieces just a little? Definitely a match. That one goes that way. Alright, got the bolt zipped off. There we go. Ring gear's loose. Pinion gear's ready to come out. Gonna crack the nut loose right there, and it should just fall out. And there it is. Getting ready to pull the bearing off of the pinion. And went to Harbor Freight, got me a little puller set, and I did have to use a couple screwdrivers to get that bearing inner race up a little bit before the puller would actually fit in there. But got it in there. I'm being real careful not to smash the shims, and gonna pull that sucker right off of there. Run out of room. There we go. It's just long enough. So there we go. Gear inspection time. I can get a really good look at it now. And I'm looking for contact, and you can kind of see where it's real shiny. I got a pointer. But here, a Sharpie. Right there, really shiny. And then back over here, see how it's not, it wasn't really hitting much there. Come over to this side of the tooth and get the same situation. Really shiny and then nothing there. So that's actually pretty damn centered. It's right in the center of that tooth. And same thing on the top of the crest here. It's hitting really nice, and you go down to the root. Pretty hard to see, but actually it's not. Pretty good wear. And then you go to the back side. I think it's the coast side. Same thing. Come over here. It's a little bit not as center, but pretty close. Pretty darn close. So that gear looks pretty good. And the same thing for the ring gear. You know, I got very little bit on the top, witness mark right there, and then you can see over there a little bit more area not hitting, but that's a little less centered, but you can kind of see it. Not too bad. Go to the back side. Or it could be the front side. I don't know. I think that's the back side. Same thing. You know, a little bit in the bottom there not hitting, a little bit in the top corner there not hitting. So not bad at all. So we're going to clean things up and reuse this gear. There's nothing wrong with that gear. It's actually worn pretty good. And as long as I get my pinion depth set back to where I was earlier, when I showed you that little video of me checking the top of that gear, I'll duplicate that number by whatever shims I got to put in with the new bearing. And that thing should track real nice. Time to clean things up. Time to knock out that bearing on the yoke end of the pinion. And I'm going to just put this bar down in there like that and hit there, bring it over there and hit there and just start beating the shit out of it until bearing pieces fly everywhere. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and tap the outer race there and there, get that bearing out. Then I'll come back up from that side, back this way, and try to catch the back of this bearing race, but the back side and knock it out towards us this way. So that's the plan. All right, there it is. Got her knocked out, inner and outer, and then the seal also is a casualty of war there. That pops out all at the same time. So now, just rotate her around. And I should, hopefully the engineers were nice, and yep, they were nice. They give me notches. Well, I tell you what, that's little things. Put them notches in there so you get a bar in there and knock the shit out. So, I'm gonna go ahead and knock out that guy. Get her right there and knock, knock, knock. Right there and knock, knock, knock. All right, there we go. Just knocked her out. Got a pile full of horse shit. Actually, it's not horse shit. I mean, yeah, that's kind of horse shit. It's not like a shot by no means, like broken, but that could be some of the metal particles, you know, real fine stuff. That bearing race is, it's getting a little worn, but I've seen a lot worse. This one here, that was not near as bad. Yeah, not too bad on that one. So all in all, actually not too bad. Rollers are in good shape. But the fit on this one, I'm gonna go check it on this pinion. It seemed a little bit loose because it fell right out of there. So I'm gonna have to check, measure things. Yeah, look at that. That's a little loose. So I'm gonna have to mic the new bearing bore and this shaft, this pinion, and see what's up with that. But that's she's got a little wear in there. Ooh. Oh, okay, that's where it stops. There's a crush collar that goes in there. But yeah, I mean it's about as far as it goes. So I'll get the mics out and see what she checks, and I'm gonna have to look it up online and see what kind of tolerance they give on that diameter. Time to knock out the axle bearings and seals. So it's got a long steel bar. It's like, I don't know, 5/8 diameter or whatever. Doesn't really matter as long as it fits through and you catch the back side of the bearing, and I just knock it out. Get a hammer and beat on it a little bit and they knock right out. Seal and everything. So there you go. Well, that's the complete teardown of the 8.8. So I kind of just lay everything out the way it came apart. Everything just like it was. Even put my little stack up there back together. Every piece the way it was. Now it's clean time. Especially that guy. I gotta get all the metal particles out of that guy. So that's next. Get her cleaned up and we'll start assembling it. New day. And it's cold again. What the heck? Anyways, I'm getting ready to install the bearings on a new carrier. This is a Yukon carrier, limited slip unit. And I like to know what kind of press fit I'm up against before I do any kind of an installation of bearings. So I went ahead and measured, mic'd this, and I'm getting 1 inch, 784 thousandths, and 4/10. So 1.7841 or 4. 784.4. And I went ahead and measured the bearing bore, and just using a T gauge. I'm pretty confident with a T gauge, with, you know, for a couple tenths usually. And I'm getting 1.7 81 and 7/10. So like two heavy 2000s, not quite 3, like 2000 8/10 press. That's pretty heavy for that small of a bearing, but I'm hearing that this Carrier brand likes a pretty heavy press, and you don't want these spinning. You don't ever want these inner races spinning because nothing retains these on but the press. Well, that way, not that way, that way. So I'm cool with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in the freezer, and these are gonna go in the oven at about 350, and I'll measure everything before I go to assemble it. I like to see about 1 thou clearance, and they should fall right back on there. So actually a little bit more than 1, but we'll see what happens. Well, not real good news here. I got 1,000th clearance, new bearing, old bearing. I know it goes, that's the right way, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's 1,000th right there, 1 thou clearance on the button. So no option. Couple options, which we're not going to do it. You could, I wouldn't, but you could 680 Loctite that thing, because it is only 1,000th, and that's what that stuff's made for. And don't forget, this crush collar, when you put a new one on there, it's going to shoulder, the bearing's going to shoulder out on it, and the yoke is going to shoulder out on the top of the bearing, that side, and everything will be captured and pinched. So highly unlikely that bearing's going to ever spin on there. But yeah, customer's going to go ahead and buy a new gear set. So we're going to put a new gear set in it. Kind of makes my job a little more difficult as far as the shimming of this stuff goes now, because I got to get my pinion depth, whole new gear. Not sure if the way I checked it is accurate enough. It might be, because this gear actually ran pretty good, and I don't see the pinion depth changing. He's going to put a 373 back in it, and your pinion depth should be the same number. I don't think that varies from Ford. So as long as the gear is machined properly, I should be able to still do that same dimension to get me in the ballpark. It should be pretty damn close. That's the worst case scenario. I'll have to press it back apart and add or subtract. You know, I bet you it'd be within 5 thousandths, one way or the other. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the stock shims back in, or just measure these shims, and I'll put the new ones in same thickness. Might have to throw all new stuff back in there. But for now, I'm over there cleaning the housing. So I'm spraying her all out, wiping out the axle tubes, and I clean out the differential housing, and get her ready. I got the Carrier in the freezer. I'm gonna put the bearings in the oven and assemble the Carrier unit, and I should be able to go ahead and start getting my preload for the Carrier figured out without the pinion in there. I'll start mocking that up, get my shims figured out, at least for the preload amount. I can't do backlash, obviously, but I can get the preload figured out. So once I get that figured out, I'll assemble the new gear set on everything, and start checking things. Well, not gonna lie, this thing is dirty with just littered here. So you can see all that. See all those metal shavings, those little fine ones everywhere. They're littered inside of this casting. So I did notice the pinion gear had a little bit of, a slight amount of end play in it. Minute, but minute is too much on a pinion. So that's probably why that bearing fit was loose. So the pinion, I think, was dancing in here just a little bit. And once that pinion gets off axis a little bit, and your gears will wear, and they wore. I got it pretty clean. I'm gonna go ahead and wire brush it, spray it maybe one more time. Probably don't gotta spray it no more, actually. I'm just gonna try to wire brush any more loose particles in there and use compressed air and blow everything out, blow all the holes out, and make sure she's clean. But yeah, you gotta get her clean. All that, the whole cavity there, cavity down there where it breaks through there to oil the bearings. Those are all oil passages for the pinion bearings. You gotta get that all clean. I got the axle tubes clean. Sprayed those really good. Ran a rag through there a bunch of times. Sprayed them probably 3 times and wiped them at least that. Got the bearing fits clean. Gonna go ahead and get a little bit of Scotch-Brite and hand Scotch-Brite it a little bit. and she's ready to assemble. Well, I took the old die grinder in there with a little wire wheel, and I cleaned that whole thing out. I wire wheeled the whole freaking thing, and I got a little hand brush. I'm going to get in there and get inside there better and inside there better, and put some compressed air to it and blow it all out. Make sure I got no wires in there or nothing, and good to go. It's clean. Oh yeah. Let me show you. So I wear my wire brush really good in there again. One more time, the hand one, just in them little holes there. Both sides, blew it out real good. Got a little emery cloth and lightly sanded any high spots out of the cradle here. Make sure there's no burrs and none of this stuff. Nice and clean. I got got this ready for assembly. Went ahead and wire brushed all that, got all the dirt out. Everything is clean, ready for assembly. So I'm gonna go ahead and start, customers buying a new gear, so I'm gonna go ahead and start putting this together. Get the axle bearings in, axle seals in, and I'm gonna start building the carrier. Well, I better check with your wife, make sure you can use the toaster oven to warm up your bearings. So I got her at 350, probably, I don't know, 10 minutes. I don't really care about time, I care about size. So I got everything ready to start miking it. When I pull them out of there, gotta find some gloves real quick and my little hammer. Got my punch just in case they get stuck. I can start driving them down. If they get really stuck, I'll just take it to a press and have them pressed on, but I'm trying to avoid that for right now. Shouldn't need it, so we're gonna see if this works. The carrier is in the freezer, and it's about as cold as it's gonna get. I got it down to 1,000th from where it was. If I grow these about 2, I should be perfect. Time to measure. About 10 minutes and 350. $83? No way. I'll take that again. Yeah, it's bigger than that. That was a good one. $83. Not enough. Put her back in. Time for a measurement. Aha. Yeah, measuring with TIG gloves on. Pretty cool. Can't see. Man, still? Man, that's only 1,000th. So I can get to 1,000 clearance. I'm gonna have to go with it. They've been in there long enough. All right, we'll get the carrier, and I might get them stuck. I get them stuck, I have to press them. Can't do that here though, not yet. So I'm gonna get the carrier over here and see if it'll drop on. All right, before I press it, I found me something that's 2-inch diameter. That's a little bit smaller than the inner race. I'm gonna be beating the hell out of. Hopefully not. So if they do get stuck, I'll put that on there, get my hammer, and knock it down. It should knock down, but always be ready, because this shit gets stuck. You gotta be ready for, have a plan. I got a punch ready. We'll get my hammer, get that ready, and hope for the best. Here we go. All right, here we go. Yeah, my phone fell, but I had to finish it off with the punch a little bit. And you can see down in there, that thing is shouldered as good as it's gonna get. I can get a little feeler gauge in there to check it, but I can't see daylight, it's down. Only problem is with that tool I was using, this guy, I needed a bigger hole in it to clear the actual journal, because it, you know, once it got flush, it wouldn't go no more. I had to use the punch, but it's down. Gonna flip it around and do the other side. Well, there she is. She's on, and she's ready to go in. I'm gonna just kind of mock it up in here and get the preload set. I went ahead and did the axle bearing on this side, got it knocked in there. I'm gonna knock the other one in and put the seals in. And I'm gonna move over here and shim it preliminary with what was in it and start getting preload figured out. All right, making a little fixture. I'm gonna press the bearing on it, and then I'll bore out this side a little bit, a couple thousandths, press it back off, flip it around, press it back on, and bore out this side and blend it in best I can. Just a couple thousandths, 2 or 3, and that'll be my slip fit setup bearing for setting up the pinion depth. There it is. Put it back in the lathe, bore that out. All right, there's my first setup bearing. Got it bored out. You can see I undercut it a little bit there. That first 1/4 inch. That's about 4 or 5 thousandths bigger than the rest of it. Little lead in. And getting ready to do this one now. So I turn the fixture down for this bearing. I'm going to do the same process. All right, there's the second one. Got it undercut right there, on size in the back. Well, it's assembly day. So there's the bearings I bored out at work. I got them nice and slip, nice and concentric to everything, so I'm getting a nice good reading. I see a lot of guys take Dremels and aggressive tooling in here and open them up, and yes, you get them to fit, but you got to be careful doing that. You want to take as equal amount as possible on there. You don't want to lose concentricity and get this bearing cocked. And you can, a couple thousandths out of there on the wrong axis, these bearings will not be nice and square. You give them enough clearance, they'll face out, but they could be off axis still, they can shift. So I would, if you're going to use an air tool, use something kind of less aggressive, like a little flappy wheel. Don't use stones, don't use carbide burrs. Use, you know, a sanding grit abrasive and take out little amounts. It's great if you have some tools to measure it so you know where you're at. So anyways, that's how I do it. I got nice and concentric, nice fit. And I got like a 1,000th clearance in there, so it'll stay located pretty well. All right, so right now I'm gonna go ahead and get the carrier set up without the gear. I'm just gonna get the preload established, get my shimming figured out. Not so much for backlash, just my preload. So at least I'll have that number established. So when I do put the ring gear on and had them pinions set up, I drop this in one time and I'm going for backlash. Then I start pulling shims, moving shims around. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna drop that in with the shims that came with this originally and see how that preload feels. All right, time to set the carrier in there for my preliminary preload numbers. So here we go. There, so it goes in this way. I'm working on this thing the same way I took it apart. Driver side, passenger side, top and bottom. I'm just staying consistent. So, I'll drop this guy in there. There's the original shim. Got a sharp edge on one side, chamfer on the other. I am putting the chamfer against the bearing, so because it just sits better. That corner doesn't interfere with the inner race spinning. So that's the way I'm going. That's the way it was too. So sharp corner towards housing. Shove it over. Bring this race back over to the bearing, nice and square as you can, holding everything over. Same thing on the other shim, chamfer to my left. We should be able to just drive that down. That's actually, you're gonna probably be pretty close. Boy, if that's gonna get that tight, that's pretty tight. Yeah, that's pretty tight. We're not gonna go with that. It's not that bad. A little snug. It's not bad at all. Bearings are starting to seat in a little bit. I'm not all the way down though. So I gotta get something soft and punch it down in there. Well, they're stock shims. They're in place, right there, right there. I knocked them down. It wasn't too hard knocking them down. It doesn't spin that bad. I mean, it's just a little snug. I mean, look at that. You know, it's there. I almost want to let that go, but I want to check my backlash with my mock-up bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and put the gear on, and I want to see my backlash because I can't do anything right now. I can't pull nothing out, shift nothing over. If that's my preload, that's my preload. I got to use the sum of both of those shims added together. That's the preload. I can't change that amount. I can shift from one side to the other, but there's nothing to take out. So I'm going to check the backlash where it's at right now, and that's going to determine if I take these over to the surface grinder. And if I am taking any preload out, I'm taking like 2 to 3 thousandths off my shims, and that's going to be it. So if my backlash is good right now, if I put my mock-up gear and bearings in here and the backlash is good with the pinion depth where it's supposed to be, then I'm going to take equal amounts off of this one and that one. Maybe like 1 thousandth or 2 off each one, maximum. And that'll just loosen the preload up just a little bit. I'll probably take 1 thou off each one. And the backlash will not change. So we'll see. A lot of what ifs right now. I just got to see where I'm at. So I'm going to get the gear mounted, get this out, gear mounted, pinion in, and start checking backlash and pinion depth. Well, after some research, I got some pretty good information about pretty big to use the stock shims where they came out of to get you a good baseline on your preload. And this is all assuming you get the bearings shouldered out like they're supposed to be, everything's deburred and laying in there real nice. But yeah, you're supposed to actually pound them things in pretty good. Some guys are saying push them in so there's just a light amount of drag on it, and then add 6 thousandths per side for case spread. Well, that seems pretty excessive, but they might be right. But this has definitely got drag on it. It's got 12 inch-pounds of drag when I got a bolt in there. It'll come around. And I just tested it, so I'm gonna leave it go. All right, dropped the pinion in. I pulled the carrier out, obviously. And the carrier did take a little effort with the pry bar to get it out of there. Pretty good. I'm happy with the preload there. I'm going with it. This guy I got set up right now. It's got about 12 inch-pounds of preload on it. Probably like 20 breakaway. Again, it's old bearings and new races. So I got it in there with the setup bearings, no crush collar, obviously. And I took my reading. I put my shim back, or my precision ground flat stock up, and I got my depth caliper down at the top of the gear to check what compared to the old one. I got the same shims under there as the old one, and it's right there, right exactly to the thousandth. I wrote the number down over here. That was a preliminary, and that is where I'm at right now. So that gear is right where it was. Remember, pinion depth is important, but this is just a number to get you close, even from the center line. I can do all that. I can measure. I can drop a dowel pin in here or anything round in here, and I can measure from here to that pin, and I can do the math, you know, and then get to the center line. I can figure all that out. There's a lot more math. Bottom line, I'm doing a comparison. From the top of here down to the pinion. The old one was tracking good. This one matches just like it. Close enough to start taking a pattern check, because a pattern check is what matters more than a number. Remember that. Preload and pattern, number one. All right, got a little rig up here. Okay. Got to keep the holes lined up, obviously. And it's a heavy press. Bolts are too short to draw it in. If I had some longer bolts, which I might go get some. Maybe we'll get some bolts that are longer, at least 4 of them. That way I can start them in here and start pulling this thing in equally and pull it on instead of press it on. I don't have a press. If you got a press, press it on, go ahead. But I don't, so that's what I'm gonna try to do. Yeah, we're gonna go that route. Gonna get her warmed up. It's really tight, and it doesn't measure like it's really tight, but it's not going on. So put a little heat to it. Got the differential in the freezer, and hopefully that thing drops right on. Get the bolts lined up, and get her in. Fahrenheit. Away. Oh, 300. What I care about, size. Size does matter. It really does. All right. Got 4 thousandths. 4 thousandths growth. I'm going for it. Pretty good. All right, she went down. I'm gonna let it suck up right there, everything kind of stabilize. Then we'll torque the bolts down, Loctite them. It gives me Loctite, so I'm gonna use it just a little bit, and that should do it. That carrier will be ready to go. All right, there it is. Nice and down without even tightening a bolt yet. You gotta be pretty quick and have bolts ready, I'm telling you. Because if you're not clocked in the right orientation and you're off just a little bit, you're gonna be fucked. So have your shit ready. See? I had my shit ready. That's how you do it. Oh, I didn't show it on camera, but I did do it. Stone off the gear and the face that the gear's mounting to. Just protect yourself from any burrs. All it takes is a couple thousandths to get that thing running out. And sometimes during machining processes, well, not sometimes, all the time, you gotta drill your hole first, then countersink. And sometimes the countersink will roll over just a little bit. And gotta stone it off. Just a little pointer. There's what I came up with, being real careful. There's a couple milled out slots, 180 from each other on the carrier housing, so I use my aluminum. And I don't have it super tight, just enough to hold it, both sides. So I got a little bit of a flat area there I'm grabbing on. I got the bearing covered. And got a little spacer underneath there. Hold it up. And that should hold it. So I'm gonna get them torqued down. Yeah, I probably should be watching a little better, but this is stage one. Next stage I'll mark them. Oh, I got that one. Work around now. Make sure I got them all at 50. Yeah, missed one. This one right here. Yep. All right, 100. Yeah, I'm old school clicker. I like the clicker. I need a Sharpie. Nope, no Sharpie. $100. That's pretty tight. All right, you get the picture. I ain't gonna show you all of them. Well, if you got 10-foot long feeler gauges like I got, now's a good time to use them on this little thing. I'm just checking, make sure I got no gap around anywhere. I know I don't, but never hurts to check. That's nice. That's nice. All right. All right, I got stock shims I tried. I was just being real gentle with it because you have no idea where backlash is. And with the 260 shim over here, and I started being real careful after I kind of pushed it over by hand just to kind of feel it. I didn't feel any backlash right away. So I started putting the 270 shim, or whatever it is, 274, over here, and just started kind of putting it in, and I didn't feel a backlash, so I stopped right there. You don't want to force it. So I already know I'm too thick over here, so I had to make a stack up. I took about 25 thousandths out of this side, because I had no backlash. So I know I need at least 10, 10, 12 I'm shooting for. And well, actually, I got to look that up, new year and all that. I'm pretty sure 10, 12 is pretty good. So I took out more than 10 or 12. I know that I got 0 right now. So I think I shifted it like 25 thousandths that way. So right now, I got a little bit. I'm going to measure it. But I got backlash. So I'm going to go ahead and put my indicator on there and see what it is. It's definitely less than 10. So now I got to go a little bit more. So what my plan is once I get this established, what I have on both sides, I'm going to go make some brand new solid spacers. I don't like using the shims. Shims are great for setting it because you can add, subtract, and get it where you want it. I'm going to go back to solid ones, so I'll make some nice solid ones tonight. And once I figure out where it needs to be. All right, got my indicator set up, got the caps torqued down. And I was shooting for 10 to 12. I'm going to check into that. Oops. There's 11 and a half. 11 and a half. Boy, I'm going to check into that. I like it. But, like I said, got to check into it. All right, time to mark my gear teeth with the marking compound. So I'm going to mark about maybe a half dozen of them or so, both sides. And it's a good practice when you spin. Once you check your mesh, you should put a little bit of drag on the ring gear as you rotate both directions. And I'm going to check probably 3-4 teeth past the marking compound. Meaning, I'm not too concerned about where the marking compound is and reading the pattern right there. I want to roll past it and transfer onto the other teeth and read that. I feel you get a better read. You can read both, but go ahead and go past it a little bit both ways. Keep drag on there, and you'll get a better read. So let's get at it. All right, there's my pattern. I forgot what side's what. I'm thinking concave side is coast. And convex side's drive. So, I mean, it's about as good as it's going to get. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. The pinion could go down about 3 to 5 thousandths, probably 3 thousandths. But this is going to wear in a little bit. So, I'm going to call that good. Come around to the heavy. This is where it transferred I was talking about. I just feel you get a better reading. And here comes the actual ones I marked. So pretty sure that's a drive side right there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that actually. I'm pretty damn happy with it. And there's the other side. It's a good balance. You get messing around with that, I'm gonna throw my balance out. And that's what you try to do. You compare both sides. And you know, if I start shimming shit, I'm going to lose that balance because they're pretty close to each other right there. That gear's not wearing nicely. Should not run nice and quiet. Kind of see back there to transfer. Like I said, it's probably a tad. No, I wouldn't even say it's high. Really, that's telling me it's not. That's actually pretty good. So, what I'm going to do now, take it back apart and make them solid shims tonight. I could probably run with those, but I just don't like any mushiness, especially when I got more than a couple thin ones in there. I only got one thin one over here, and then the stock one, 25 thousandths shim. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Probably gonna make new shims is what I'm thinking. I mean, I technically could just go ahead and take 25 off of the stock shim on this side, and then just use a 25 over here. I could do that too. So we'll see. Anyways, gonna finish that up tonight and put it all back together tomorrow. Get my setup bearings out of the pinion, put the good bearings in here, the crush collar, torque it down, get my inch-pounds of resistance on the pinion, put everything back together, and I'll double check backlash, double check pattern again, because you never know. You got 2 different bearings I'm gonna have in here. I know their bearings are precise, but they are angular contact, and there is a little bit of tolerance that can stack up and affect your pinion height. You know, you could affect it 5 thousandths, believe it or not, but you can. Probably not going to, but when I drop the new bearings in there, I'll take my measurement to the top of the gear again, and I'll know right away if it moved or not. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Grinding my shims in. Making the other spacer. Both shim packs. There you go. 538 and a couple tenths. New shim packs added together. 37 and a couple tenths. So I wanted to make the preload one thou less, which I did. Right on the money. All right, got the shims I made in there. Oh, no pinion. I'm just checking the preload on this guy, and it's pretty good. It's about where it was. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna pull it back out and finish setting up the pinion for the final. Gotta make a correction to my video. See that chamfer on the outside, the OD? That does need to go this way against the case. Reason being, the bottom corner, there's a little bit of a radius in there, and if you put the sharp edge that way, it's not gonna lay real nice in that corner. It might throw things off just a little bit. So I'm gonna alter my video. I'll put a little note in there saying, no, wrong way, dumbass. It goes that way, both sides. Heavy chamfer, so that bottom clearance clears, that radius. All right, bearings have been in here for a little bit. Should have about 2 thou clearance. Should. Ah, damn it. Well, that sucks. Got caught. Don't recommend this way, but I got her cocked. I gotta get her back off. No big deal. I'm just gonna warm it back up a little hotter. Nice solid thud. Oh yeah, that's down. Don't hit the race or the cage. Perfect. Nice. Nice. That's down. Oh yeah. She's down. Just using an 80-90 weight. recommendation is a GL5. And that's what I got here, non-synthetic. So I'm just going to use this for assembly lube. Well, I went ahead and I'm still using my setup bearing on the bottom just to pull the new bearing into the race nice and tight, so I can check my height, and I'm within 1,000th from where it was, so we're still good. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop that bottom bearing, setup bearing, and put the real one in with the crush collar and start torquing the pinion down. All right, there she is, all shimmed up, backlash check, pattern check. Backlash should tighten up a little bit. I'm at 7 now. New gear, new bearings. Things will loosen up. Don't want it too loose. So it's not going to get any tighter. I like to see it about 8, 9. 7 is okay. Yeah, everything went together pretty good. So there it is. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate you watching the video. If you've already subscribed, thanks. Comment in here. If you had seen anything I did wrong, or I did something wrong, but hey, it feels good end result. So anyways, thanks for watching.